Welcome back to MOVIEidol. So we got some pretty big news coming from Scott Gimple himself. He revealed when the Rick Grimes movie, the first one, is likely going to come out. He also suggested when a lot of announcements will be made, also hinted at some stuff related to Fear the Walking Dead and how the first half of Fear the Walking Dead will tie into the Rick Grimes movies, which is weird. The only thing that comes to mind with that is the possibility of Morgan actually leaving Fear and going to the Rick Grimes movies as well. For one, since he's the only character that's closer to Rick, timeline-wise anyways, maybe when Rick gets to the helicopter place, Morgan's already there, Anyways, I want to break down his comments and more. Before jumping in, I do want to warn you for spoilers for the latest episode of The Walking Dead titled To Come Before. So on Talking Dead, Gimple had quite a bit to say. He was asked about the Dead universe in general and if there's any announcements to be made, and he dances around the question a lot, but he also does kind of say a lot in his answer, and this is what he had to say. We're working on a number of things right now. They're getting very close. We're going to have a steady flow of announcements through the rest of the year. And then 2020 is going to be bananas. There's going to be some pre-announcements made. We're going to have some announcements after that. But what I will say is Fear the Walking Dead is coming in June. And there's a story in the first half of the season that has to do with one of these greater stories of the universe that will bring in some of the things that all of you guys have seen before, and it will expand it out just a little bit more, and then we'll have an announcement. So like I said, he dances around a lot of stuff, and it seems like he can't really comment on anything because he just can't say anything yet, but he doesn't really say a lot, but he does kind of say a lot. Like, he does say something's going to happen in Fear in the first half that is going to link to a greater story that's going to expand on some other stuff, and then once that happens, they're going to have an announcement. And the one thing that comes to mind is something that Brandon Davis said. I think it was, I don't even know, maybe it was a month ago or something on, I don't know if it was on Twitter or something, but he said that if you're a fan of Rick Grimes and the Rick Grimes movies and you're really excited for that, definitely check out Fear the Walking Dead Season 5, at least the first part, because something's going to happen in that first part of Fear the Walking Dead that's going to connect to the Rick Grimes movies. And Gimple didn't really talk about that there, but if I'll read exactly what he said here, he said, and to say, or Fear the Walking Dead is coming up in June, and there's a story in the first half of the season that has to do with one of these greater stories, which I think is the Rick Grimes thing, that will bring in some of the things that all of you guys have seen before, and it will expand out just a little bit more, blah, 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 and then we'll have an announcement. So are the two related? I really do think so. I do think those two are related. So how could this be related? How is Fear the Walking Dead going to relate in some way to the Rick Grimes movies and also, garner an announcement afterwards? If it was, say, Morgan and Dwight and like Alicia and all of them are connected to this helicopter group, and say we see certain things with the helicopter group, that really wouldn't be like an announcement after that. It would kind of make no sense. What I think is actually going to be the case is something in this first half of season 5, something's going to happen where I think a character is going to leave the show and go to the Rick Grimes movies, and then an announcement will be made. And I think it's going to be Morgan. I really do. Everyone's been complaining about Rick and Morgan and the fact that they're never going to be reunited anymore because Morgan's on Fear and Rick's in these movies now. And even if Morgan comes back to The Walking Dead, Rick's not there. There's just this whole thing missing, you know what I mean? And so it feels off. It just feels really weird because these two characters started out everything, and now these two characters are just missing. They're completely gone, and we didn't really have a closure. And so to bring Morgan to, say, the first Rick Grimes movie, to have that first Rick Grimes movie about Rick and Morgan, and then you bring Heath and Jadis into the mix, but the two central characters are like Rick and Morgan, that's amazing. I really, really like that. I think personally they could do so much with that. There is a lot that they can do in terms of expanding on Morgan's story a bit more, because Morgan kind of feels disconnected, I think, as a character. To me personally, there's no connection there. I don't really relate with Morgan anymore. I really liked him in season 1. I liked him in season 3, and then I liked when he came back. I think it was in season 6, right? That's when he really officially came back. I really liked him in season 6, but season 7 and 8, I mean, I guess a lot of characters I just didn't really like, but I just wasn't really connected with him. He did get a little bit better on Fear the Walking Dead. Maybe it's because he just abandoned his crazy way of thinking. He became a little more relatable. I don't really know what the reason is. I haven't really thought about it too much, but even though he became a little more relatable in Fear the Walking Dead, he still wasn't the character that I really, fell in love with in season 1, 3, and in 6. And so I think if they take him away from Fear and just transition him somehow to this Rick Grimes movie, I think that would be amazing, because Michonne, we know, is going to be leaving in season 10. Like, we know she's expected to transition over to the Rick Grimes movies, but I don't see her being in that first movie. Remember, this is a trilogy, so she doesn't have to be like in the second movie either, so she could just appear in the third movie. But because of this weird 6-year time thing, I think the first movie is going to like take place or span, I guess, over those 6 years. The second movie, which will likely come out in 2022, will take place around where we're currently at, and that's when we'll see Michonne and them like jump in, with the third movie taking place maybe sometime in the future. Morgan could be in all three of these movies. Like, that's the thing that I'm just not really sure what the Dead universe or what Gimple has planned for The Walking Dead in general. They want to build this Dead universe. That's their plan. The Walking Dead isn't dead. Like, season 9 signaled a new beginning. Maybe you could argue Fear the Walking Dead season 4 did, but I'm just going to ignore that. Season 9 of The Walking Dead signaled a new beginning. The Walking Dead was reborn that day. On October 7th, I think, was the first episode, or the day the first episode of Season 9 premiered. But that was the day they sort of started Chapter 2 of all of this, and you just got to think about format-wise what they're going to be doing with this Dead universe, whether they're going to have stories on Netflix, or these movies that are going to be on AMC, or just other spin-offs, because I know there's a third spin-off in the works right now. No one knows what it's related to. No one knows if it's related to Maggie, if it's related to Negan perhaps, or just set on different characters. Nobody knows what this third spinoff is about, but apparently there's going to be some sort of announcement related to that at some point this year, with a premiere date likely sometime in 2020. Because just like Gimple says in his comments here, 2020 is going to be bananas, and I think it's because, well, Fear the Walking Dead, maybe it could end this year, but it might have already gotten renewed for season 6. I don't even remember. I don't really follow Fear too much, but say it does get renewed for season 6, or it has been, then there'll be Fear season 6. You'll have this third spinoff. You'll have The Walking Dead season 10 ending in 2020. Also, season 11 beginning in 2020. You're going to have the first Rick Grimes movie coming out that year. There is a lot of stuff to look forward to. And when Gimple says there's going to be a lot of announcements this year, I think as it relates to this Rick Grimes movie, I think what's going to be coming out this year is, one, the title, and I'm guessing likely the cast, the release date, and I think that's pretty much going to be it. The trailer, personally, I don't see coming out until like April 2020. That's just sort of, in my opinion, I think that's probably when it's going to come out. Gimple has been working on this script for a very long time. I don't know if he's working on it alone or if they have other people. I do prefer when just one person writes the script. I really do just prefer that. So hopefully that is the case. Like, as much as I don't really like Gimple as the showrunner, I think writing-wise, sometimes it can work. Like, as long as he has good direction, it can work, because he wrote Rick's final episode, right? And that's my favorite episode of all time. Now, he had Angela Kang's direction, in general, because Angela Kang, she's the showrunner, she's handling the whole show, so she knows when she wants certain things to be played. So maybe that's where Gimple just sort of has his issues there. But I think as a writer, at least sometimes, I guess as a writer, sometimes you're going to have a hit or miss, but I don't really know. He wrote Rick's final episode. It's one of my favorites. I mean, maybe with this Rick Grimes movie, he could do the same thing again and really make an amazing movie. The first announcement, I think, will probably come at some point, I'm guessing, after the finale. Within this next week or so, I think we're probably going to get at least one announcement of something. It depends. If this Rick Radio thing happens, we'll see what happens with that, but I don't know if that's really going to be the case. I think throughout the summer, for one, at the end of April, they might announce something about Lauren Cohen if they sign a contract, because they start filming The Walking Dead season 10. I think it's early May. It's around there. So if Lauren Cohen's coming back, we need to know soon, right? And if this announcement comes in like June or something like that she's returning, then that means she's probably going to be appearing later in the season. And I'm pretty sure Whiskey Cavalier starts filming in like August or something like that. I think that's why she left when she did, was because Whiskey Cavalier started filming in August or whatever. So that would mean that the second half of each season of the show, if she does come back, would kind of be affected. They could probably find a way to work around it, just schedule wise, and make it so she could at least film some parts and just appear in a certain episode. Because just think about Michonne. She's really barely been in this season compared to like characters like Daryl and Carol, but we haven't really noticed, because as long as you give her like a strong episode, like episode 14, where she's just like the center of that episode, it works. Honestly, it works. It's just a nice reminder that, yeah, she's still around. Think about the Pike episode. Michonne really wasn't front and center. That was Daryl. Daryl was front and center. Second was Carol. Third was Michonne. So I think Angela Kang, I really think they probably worked out something, and they probably knew in advance that Denai Guerrero was going to leave in season 10, and I think that's why they're phasing this out. At least it's a suspicion of mine. And so back to my point of what I was saying, I think they could do this with Lauren Cohen. I really do think. I think that they could just have maybe episode 7 of season 10, just like a solely focused like Maggie episode, something just like episode 914 of this season with Michonne, and then it's just a nice reminder, yeah, she's still around. Or they could even do it like for episode 13 or 14 of season 10. I'm sure she could get away from Whiskey Cavalier for a week, or they could sort of like, they could work out a schedule in advance. I think this year things were messy because Whiskey Cavalier started its first season. They didn't really know how things were going to work out. Lauren Cohen just wanted to leave the show and do new things. Now she says that she's not done with Maggie. So I don't know. Overall, I'm hoping Maggie does come back via, The Walking Dead and not via a spinoff. But it seems like this year, it's not going to be as big as 2020. It seems like this year is going to be big, I guess, in general for just like announcements and excitement and hype. Like this year, we're going to be getting so fucking excited over everything. But 2020 is when we're going to have this constant flow of Walking Dead content. Because just think about 2020. Starting in February of 2020, I believe that's going to be issue 200 of the comic, so that's going to be really big. But also, what comes back in February of 2020? The Walking Dead. The second half of the season anyway, so that's going to be the second half of season 10. That'll end in April. Game of Thrones might not be around anymore. They might have that prequel thing, sure, but they could have something coming out in April, May, or even June. Like Fear could come back around there. When Fear's on this break for however long, they could have the Rick Grimes movie airing that summer, or they could air it like right after season 10 is done. They could do it closer to season 11 in the fall, and then obviously we'll get season 11 in the fall, and that'll take us throughout the rest of the year. So I could see what Scott Gimple is getting at when he says it's going to be all bananas in 2020. Oh, and I forgot, there's going to be a third spinoff apparently. So, there's a lot of shit going on in 2020 that I think whatever's going to happen that year, there's going to be a ton of announcements this year, and I'm just really, really excited. I'm just curious as to what that Easter egg is going to be in Fear, or whatever story-wise it's going to connect to this greater story that I think is the Rick Grimes thing. It's just exciting. I'm really, really excited about this. Like, it's crazy to think that a year ago, All Out War was ending, and we were just like, well, what are they going to do next? Commonwealth or Whisperers? Are they going to jump into a villain arc right away? Like, how's this all going to work out? And we were just all kind of feeling very down about the show. There was so much hate on the show. They killed off Carl a few months back, and then we just started to find out all this crazy information. Lauren Cohen was leaving. Andrew Lincoln was leaving The Walking Dead. It was just constantly like just negative news after negative news, and just felt so depressing. And then once this show came back in October of last year, it felt better. It felt a lot better, but it's just been slowly building and building and building. And then episode 915, The Walking Dead's trending on Twitter again. People are covering it everywhere. So as a Walking Dead fan, it just seems like, the future is bright. 2020 is going to be a massive year, but we still have a lot of shit to go through in 2019. So we're all going to go through this shit together. It's going to be really intense, but yeah, post your thoughts down below on everything. Like, what are you most excited for, like Walking Dead related for like in the next 2 years? Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.